California. But now we do want to kind of just transition stories here from one that we've been following today. And that's about the death penalty. And we were learning today that the state of Virginia has voted to abolish the death penalty. Just want to put some of this video that we have up here at the moment and read some of this story for you. Monday today, state lawmakers decided and gave their final approval on legislation that will end capital punishment in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The decision comes as Democrats continue to enact policy changes. The legislation will now head to the desk of Governor Ralph Northam, who's expected to sign it into law. Virginia is the 23rd state to stop executions and the first southern state in the country to do so. It's a dramatic shift for a state that has executed more people than any other. We're going to be joined right now by Robert Dunham. He is the executive director of the Death Penalty Information Center. He's joining us now. Mr. Dunham, thank you so much. You know, what does this really say about, southern states like Virginia, and did this surprise you, or was this a long time coming?
Well, it is both surprising and a long time coming. The death penalty has been appearing in much of the United States. There had been 10 states in years that had abolished capital punishment. Virginia is the first state from the Deep South to have done so. And the significance of legislators in the seat of the former capital of the Confederacy eliminating a punishment that has been historically viewed as an outgrowth of slavery, lynching, and Jim Crow, I don't think that you can understate the significance of that. This is a very, very significant step in terms of dismantling some of the types of laws that have been used over the course of the history of this country as vehicles of racial oppression.
And Robert, did you think that, like I said in the intro there, 23 states now outlaw the death penalty. What does public opinion say, though? You mentioned it's kind of moving in this direction that it's very, very either ambivalent or opposed to the death penalty. What does public polling say about Americans' views on the death penalty in 2021?
Americans have nuanced and almost contradictory views. In the 1980s, 80% that as of in the last year. That's just like when Gallup asked the country, the response was 60% saying that like option. And when it comes to Virginia, the most recent poll in Virginia asked whether Virginians thought that the state should replace capital punishment with life without parole. A majority of Virginians, including 36% of Republicans, said that they believe that the death penalty should be replaced.
Also, I was kind of wondering as well, let's transition this conversation now to, a new president, a new administration. As you know, the Trump administration in the last few months got rid of the moratorium on federal executions, and so there were a number of them, the most since I believe the early aughts, the early 2000s. That was done by the Trump Department of Justice and then Attorney General Bill Barr. What do you think President Biden will do on federal executions? Will he reinstate that moratorium? What's your thinking? What are people in your circles saying about that?
The early indications are from Merrick Garland's testimony today in the confirmation hearings that it is likely that the Biden administration will halt federal executions. They may impose a formal moratorium. During the Obama administration, there was an informal moratorium. And in fact, there hadn't been any federal executions since 2003. So there hadn't been executions in 17 years. It's likely that we will see that. What's not clear is what will happen with President Biden's campaign pledge to try to end the federal death penalty. That would require, I think, some bipartisan cooperation. And although most of the states that have abolished capital punishment have achieved that through bipartisan cooperation, it's not clear that we have that kind of cooperation in the U.S. Congress right now. The Congress is very highly polarized.
You know, I wanted to ask as well, just, what other states are you looking to now that Virginia is slated to pass this? Governor Northam said he indicates that he's going to sign it. So, you follow this very closely at the Death Penalty Information Center. What other states are on the horizon for abolishing the death penalty at the moment?
Well, a bill was just introduced in Ohio, which is the state that has the most executions of any northern state. And it's a bipartisan bill, which would be a major change from what we've seen coming out of Ohio. It's a bill that is given moderate chances of success. It's hard to assess right now whether that will pass or not, but it's considered a very major development, that there's significant Republican support that's going behind it. And also in Wyoming, there appears to be a second effort by Republican legislators to repeal the death penalty in that state. Wyoming is the most Republican legislature in the United States, and majority where that goes. But those look like two states that are important to watch.
And Robert, you brought this up already, but let's just kind of touch on President Biden's pick and nominee to lead the Justice Department, Merrick Garland. He testified today in front of the committee, in front of senators. He's also getting some Republican support. It seems that Chuck Grassley, John Cornyn indicate that they'll vote to confirm him. But, with a future Merrick Garland as Attorney General, we heard him mention some of the comments when asked about the death penalty. Are you optimistic, though, that, they could reinstitute this moratorium that the Trump administration essentially got rid of, and essentially kind of walk us through the difference between federal and state executions? What's the dividing line there?
Well, that's actually a hard question to answer. Theoretically, for something to be a federal death penalty case, there has to be a distinct federal interest. And we can easily think of some of those certain instances of terrorism, murders that occur on federal lands, killing of federal officials. Those are your classic federal crimes. But in the mid-1990s, the federal death penalty was expanded so that it brings in all sorts of possible death penalty cases. Killings a death that occurs during the course of a carjacking, for example, or a death that occurs during the course of a kidnapping, things that are traditional state crimes. So it's hard to, from a substantive matter, differentiate between what's a federal death penalty case and a state death penalty case. In terms of carrying out the death penalty, the federal death penalty is actually a very small part of the death penalty. There are now 49 people on death row in the federal government, and there are 2,500 people on death row nationwide. But it's highly significant symbolically because it is the national government. And I think that what we can expect to see is certainly a federal government during the Biden administration that will not be moving forward with carrying out executions. The major questions are going to be, will they continue to authorize new death sentences? Will they continue to take the cases in which the Trump administration said they were going to seek the death penalty and continue with capital trials? How are they going to respond to capital appeals? We don't know what the answer to those questions are. And if President Biden is serious about ending the federal death penalty, as he said his goal was, and he cannot achieve cooperation from both houses, the House and the Senate, then he has the option still to grant clemency. And so he's been under, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but a number of progressive legislators and a number of civil rights groups have been writing letters urging the president to grant clemency to everybody on death row, to clear death row, so that what happened after the Obama administration can't happen again, which was essentially the Obama administration's informal moratorium kicked the can down the road, leaving people on death row for the unparalleled execution spree that took place in the final 6 months of the Trump presidency.
And Robert, just for our viewers, we just want to paraphrase and even quote what Merrick Garland said in the hearing today. He said he had, quote, great pause about the death penalty. He cited the large number of exonerations, the increasing randomness, almost arbitrariness of its application, and the enormously disparate impact on Black Americans and other communities of color. Garland said he expects Biden to give some direction in this area, and like we've been mentioning here, perhaps return to the previous policy, which would be a moratorium, either informal or formal. Just lastly, Robert, for you, what will you be looking for in the days and weeks ahead? How did you receive this news out of Virginia today there at the center?
Well, I think we can expect to see some movement once Merrick Garland is confirmed, and his confirmation seems likely. I don't think that there'll be immediate action at the federal level in terms of clemency. I think that probably shortly after we have the Biden team has its group in place, that you'll probably get a directive from the president on how he wants to proceed with capital prosecution and with executions. But I think that the administration, if is going to want to have more facts, and I would expect to see the commission to evaluate the federal death penalty and to assess what should happen going forward. One of the most important things, I think, to the Biden administration and that Merrick Garland mentioned today is the question of exonerations. And we just issued a report last week that shows that there have been 185 individuals who were wrongly convicted and sentenced to death in the United States who were subsequently exonerated. That is one exoneration for every 8.3 executions that have been carried out in the United States, which is a very disturbing rate of error. And so I think that's something that President Biden is certainly taking into consideration. It's something that Merrick Garland is certainly taking into consideration. And we'll have to see how it plays out in the months ahead.
Yeah, and thank you for telling our viewers some of those really startling numbers. Those numbers are stunning. Robert Dunham, thank you, the Executive Director for the Death Penalty Information Center, I believe based out of Washington, D.C. We appreciate you taking the time tonight on this Monday, and we'll talk to you again.
My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation there. Really interesting conversation. This is coming on the heels, like I said before, the Virginia has voted to abolish the death penalty, just waiting on Virginia Governor Ralph Northam's signature to sign that into law. It will become the 23rd state to stop executions and the